Welcome to Prepper Nation. I am John. DeSantis dropped out of the race last night. And I saw this news and I said, well, we can talk about that. We can maybe talk about that tomorrow morning, which is now. Um, but as I thought about it, it's always been a two-horse race. Let's be honest with ourselves here for a minute. It's always been a two-horse race. The T-Man versus whomever the swamp is putting their funding and effort behind. We knew this from the get-go. And so we know now who the swamp's candidate is. And then again, on the other side, you have T-Man. So I'm not going to waste your time this morning talking too much about DeSantis. I'm not going to waste my time talking about DeSantis because not like we can do anything about it, right? It's one of those things you just can't control, which is something we're going to talk about this morning. But we do have to acknowledge that DeSantis quit. He quit the race. I mean, this happens in politics, but everybody's like, oh, DeSantis quit. He quit on Florida. He quit. He quit. So I think it's important this morning not to quit. And I'm not talking about politics here. Uh, Matter of fact, I wish all politicians would just quit and turn it back over to the American people. But I digress. It's very important not to quit on other things in life. And I've been seeing a lot of gloomy. Gloomy would be the word to use here, son. Gloomy. I've been seeing a lot of comments here and on other channels. People are just up against it. Maybe they're dealing with stuff physically, spiritually, financially. I've seen creators posting, talking about how YouTube is being mean to them, like this is brand new or something. And people are just, it feels like they're down on themselves. Not everyone, of course. A lot of people are upbeat. I try and stay upbeat, but I'm going to give you the secret to being upbeat this morning, even when you're up against a lot of bad things. And this is getting into mental toughness. This is something to Backwoods credit. We covered this on the Radioactive podcast. I know that mental toughness is important. He gets it. He was talking about how important it was this past week. If you have not seen that, go to the main page here on YouTube, Radioactive Podcast. It was episode number 3. But I want to talk about, the 3 things a prepper must have if you're going to be successful. But this goes beyond prepping, okay? It absolutely applies to prepping, but it goes beyond that. You can use this in other areas of your life, okay? And then I'm going to get into a personal story as well. So if you're interested, stick around. If not, hey, don't worry about it. I won't be crying any alligator tears or anything like that. Crocodile tears, I think is what they're called. But the first thing you've got to do is learn how to compartmentalize things. And that's a big word, man. It's early, it's Monday morning. Compartmentalize things. What does this mean? This means to take things and put them in different sections of your life, or as we're talking about this morning, the filing cabinet up here. You got to file it in certain spots. And so I'm going to give you the 3 things now. These are all compartments that you have to have mentally as a prepper, and you've got to know how to use this, and you've got to know where things go. It's I don't really know how to explain it. It feels like a lot of preppers, based on either the content they're putting out, which I've been guilty of it at times as well, or you know, it just by comments and things that I see. It's like their files just laid out scattered across the table and people are just digging through at random, and you can't do that if you're going to be successful at prepping, and you absolutely cannot do this if you're going to be successful at life. So yeah, put your listening ears on. And that's a metaphor, folks. I don't know if anybody actually has listening ears unless you're wearing hearing aids. But anyway, the first compartment is things that affect you directly. All right. So something that would affect you directly, let me see here. Um, Food inflation. I'm just grabbing something out of midair, but food inflation affects you directly, affects me directly, and everybody else that's not living in lunacy land where there's no food inflation. Real people, real people understand right now there's food inflation. Okay. I'm not here to split hairs. If you're one of those weirdos that thinks it doesn't exist, hey, good for you. Keep spending whatever it is you're spending on food. For the rest of us, we're paying more for food. And this affects us directly. And so we have to prepare accordingly. We know right now here at the Ponderosa that groceries are going to cost more every single time we go to buy them, and so that money's gotta come from somewhere else, right? So we've gotta go through, we've gotta trim a little bit of stuff here, a little bit of stuff here. Maybe there's a streaming service we gotta trim that out or whatever to make it work. So that's something that affects you directly. Then there are things that affect you indirectly. And a good example of this would be, well, we just experienced it this past week, weather. It affects you indirectly. Getting back to, I was telling y'all last week, at the end of last week, there wasn't a lot of gasoline in this area. Okay. We didn't get hammered with a blizzard or anything like that. It was really, really cold here. There was a trace amounts of ice. We lost power in the middle of the night on Saturday night for like 3 hours. I don't know why. I don't know what happened, but it was back on. We were prepared either way. But the point is, gasoline just wasn't showing up because we were being affected indirectly because there were blizzards in other places and the gasoline just could not get here. So that's something that you can prep for accordingly. And then the third compartment up here, and my mind has many compartments, but we're talking about these three this morning, okay? Is stuff that really doesn't affect you, or stuff that you simply have no control over. All right, so it's fun to war game, right? It's fun to get on here and talk about different conflicts and different continents and things. But at the end of the day, or even DeSantis, sometimes we get into the political stuff. And I know Vivek dropped out, and Nikki Haley's kind of on. People are watching to see if and when she's going to drop out, like with bated breath. But at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me a whole lot as a person. And even if it did, there's nothing I can do about it. It's not like I can call DeSantis up and say, "Hey, son, don't quit. Get back into the race. Hey, Vivek, get back in." You understand what I'm saying? There's just certain things out of our control as people. And I think people are focusing on the wrong things, um, universally, but also in the prepping community. And it seems like here in the prepping community, and again, this is not going to apply to everybody, but it's going to apply to some people out there. I promise you, you're allowing these things that are out of your control to affect you mentally, right? I cannot think of a better example of this than nukes. Nukes are very, very scary. Nukes are something, once that conversation begins, it's all about fear at that point. Like, nobody's going into a conversation about nukes smiling ear to ear, but it's one of those things that is also so insanely out of your control. A few button presses, continents begin to disappear, and things get biblical. But again, there's nothing you can do about it. Be right with your maker, be as prepared as possible for the other things, but also understand, man, if a nuke drops on you and you're not 30 feet underground with the right breathing system and $100,000 worth of food, you're not going to make it anyway. You may make it 5 months, 6 months, or whatever, but people allow stuff like this to affect them mentally, even though it's so far out of their control. And when you do this, you're neglecting stuff that you can control in your life, and it's just miserable. I see it, and these people are miserable, and I feel bad for them. If you don't mind, real quick, if you want to, hit like and subscribe here on the channel, and if not, whatever. No judgment here. You folks that are on Patreon, and if you're in the coffee club, the Bunker Busters, there's going to be a link to a documentary dropping later. It's a really good documentary if you've got 20, 25, 30 minutes. I forget how long it is, like 25 or 30 minutes, that's focused on this topic. of fear and how fear sells and stuff like this. But we'll cover it at some point, but that will be dropping in a little while. But for the rest of you, you may feel worn down. And again, I've seen this in the comments, and you know who you are. You don't need to raise your hand or anything. You know if I'm speaking to you on this. You may feel worn down because you're worried about nukes instead of staying warm. Instead of focusing on the more important, more immediate things, you're worried about the boogeymen. We sometimes on the channel we say the boogeymen, right? You before you go to bed, look up under the bed, make sure there are no nukes up under there, make sure there are no nukes in the closet, things like this. And I'm not downplaying it, and I'm not saying this could never happen, okay? Because it absolutely could happen. But again, totally out of your control. Do not spend your entire life focused on whether or not nukes are going to fall from the sky, because you're going to be a miserable individual up here and in here if that's where your focus is at. Again, to give you three examples, running out of food affects you directly. That's something you can change. If you begin to see shortages in your stores, you can produce, you can be a consumer and stack. It's highly suggested you do both, that you're preserving food. That's something that you can focus on that makes sense and avoid that entire situation. Other people may run out of food, but not you, because you've taken care of business. Ignoring mental fitness, and I'm seeing it again in real time in this community, it can affect you indirectly. Too many videos of, oh my God, it's totally over. I'm done. 3 days from doomsday. Too much of that in your diet pulls you in the wrong direction. And it gets you thinking, again, it's great for business, but it pulls you down this path of gloom and doom, and it really wears you down. We've all been down that path, some of us for miles, others, I'll go down this path sometimes for 20 feet, and I'm like, "No, son, wait a minute. The trees look different over here." You know what I'm saying? Uh, I don't want none of this. Let's go back out to where things are cool, right? And then the other things, like the hidden meaning behind a national alert. Remember that one? Remember that one when people were taken so far down that gloom and doom path with that boogeyman that they actually thought, okay, at a certain time when this alert goes out, people are going to turn into zombies. People actually thought that. Not kidding. And then you have people that will watch airplanes and airplane patterns for literally hours on end. I didn't know this community existed. I got to be honest with you. And again, these are the kind of people you just pray for, because these people are sitting down for 8 and 10 hours a day, every single day, and they're just watching airplane patterns, and they're trying to figure out, why is this airplane going in a different pattern than it has for the last month and a half? Why did their radio go silent? Like, how is that improving your life? As a prepper or as a person in general, back up for a second. If that's you, I'm talking to you, son. Back up for a second. How does that improve your standard of living? How is that making you any more prepared? And what can you directly do to change it? Nothing. Nothing. You're wasting time that you can be spending on preparing. So, to get into, because again, I've fallen victim not to the airplanes or, hey, I'm turned into a zombie, but I've fallen victim as well. I'm man enough to admit it. I'm getting into a little more personal stuff here. Maybe some people that have been with me on Patreon for a very, very long time, maybe they know some of this, but the first couple of years on YouTube for me were miserable. The first couple of years that the channel took off, when you go back, you wouldn't think it, right? Because I'm all smiling and I'm on everybody's panel. I'm on 6 panels a week. I'm rubbing elbows with everybody. I just want to be accepted at this point into the prepping community. I want other creators to like me. I'm a people pleaser at this point, several years back, and it was just miserable. The channel was growing. We were seeing growth to the moon, right? So it's not like I don't know how to do that. But after a couple of years, and I've mentioned this before on Patreon, but it has been a long time, I was ready just to quit. I was ready to quit because my entire 7 days a week or whenever I was creating content had nothing to do with anything that I was interested in. It was all about trying to please every single person who left a comment, trying to chase certain algorithms, always saying yes to panels because I didn't want other creators to be mad at me. And I want it to be accepted. I wasn't having fun. And again, I was being a people pleaser. And I'm having fun now. In case y'all ain't figured it out, you can go back and you can watch an older video and you can see me. I'm doing things like a robot in some of those videos. I'm embarrassed of it actually, but I'm having a lot of fun now. Because nowadays I do not conform. I do not. This is getting into those folks for a second that complain about YouTube. How can we? How can we complain about the censorship that many of us deal with because we know it's coming? We can. It's unfair of us to expect YouTube all of the sudden not to be YouTube and to be friendly to everybody. We know certain communities are going to get censored. So how can we even blame them? How can we constantly get on here and say, "Oh, YouTube's doing this," and it's just not. At some point, they're slapping you in the face, and you have to stand there, cupcake, and you've got to figure out, okay, am I willing to stand here every day and be slapped in the face and not complain about it, or am I going somewhere else? Am I going to go pitch my tent somewhere else? So I figured this out. This helped me become happier because I no longer worry about censorship. I wake up every single morning and I know I'm going to be getting slapped in the face and the boots to the face. Seriously, y'all. 3 days out of 5, I'm under review for something and they go in and they manually review it. And I've just gotten so used to it. I would almost miss it if it didn't happen, to be honest with you. But I'm not going to conform. I'm not going to become one of these channels, these monkey see, monkey do channels. It's all over the place. Prepping community is filled with wannabe carbon copies of other channels, and that ain't me. That's never been me. I'm not going to chase algorithms. I figured this out a long time ago. And look, the growth of this channel, the moment I decided, and it was my decision, I'm not chasing algorithms anymore. So the growth straight down to the ground, and at this point, I think, man, I've told somebody this. I don't know. I think I told Dynamite this, but brother, if it wasn't you, I apologize. I've reached a point where if people want to shoot a thumbs up, hey, that's great. I'll ask for it once. If they want to subscribe, that's great. But people who watch this channel day in and day out, did you realize only 40% of them are subscribed? And if I'm late, I'll be late this morning with this video, or if I miss a day, they bitch me out in the comments and they demand to know why this is late or why I had to take off, why I had to take a kid to the doctor because they were sitting there with bated breath waiting for a video to drop, but they won't subscribe. I've quit trying to please these people. And, when you get right down to it, I'm having fun. I'm having fun because I've gotten back to, okay, I'm not good at basketball, but I'm having fun nonetheless because I've gotten back to doing this for the reasons that I started doing this for. You know, I want to enjoy creating content. I want to be able to create content anytime, not be on a certain schedule, drop it whenever I want to drop it, not be on here shilling for companies, but laying it at your feet and saying, "Look, I'm not going to show you a commercial 6 days a week for one of these companies out here. I would prefer to have the support of the community." And so those that have supported me up until this point, God bless you for it. And for those that don't, or maybe you're scared to subscribe, you refuse, it's whatever, whatever. Appreciate you watching the videos, but it is what it is. Y'all take care and God bless.